and hope that we will meet in person someday soon. Again, my name is Frank Stevens. Athens-Clarke County government has, in my view, demonstrated exemplary long-range planning by updating a 20-year plan and revisiting it and updating it every 5 years. And this is critical considering that most of these expensive public health and environmental protection assets, which you own, have a useful life of 20 to even 100 years. To me, this is really powerful long-range leadership by your government and your elected officials. It's also important because water and sanitary sewer is an enterprise function of government. Think of it as a government-owned business. All the water and sewer revenues go strictly to water operations and capital improvements and capital reinvestment. The first service delivery plan was adopted in 1995, followed by 2000, 2010, 2005, 2010, and the one we are currently operating under and updating is 2015. These are not plans that sit on a shelf. They compel action, like upgrading the water treatment plants or replacing old water pipes. There are 3 elements to each 5-year iteration of the service delivery plan: the infrastructure element, the capital improvements element, and the financial element. Now, the 2020 infrastructure element and capital improvement element are linked to our website. The infrastructure element identifies the capital and projects most necessary to maintain and upgrade the water and sanitary sewer system. The capital element prioritizes these projects across 6 categories. Yet to come is the financial element, whereby these prioritized projects are sequenced in a fiscal model to make them more affordable. Back to you, Lori.
Lori, please unmute yourself.
If anybody was playing live Webex bingo, you have just earned a square for unmute yourself. Sorry about that. Next is Greg Jackson, our utilities engineer. He will speak to any questions regarding our drinking water distribution and wastewater collection systems. Greg.
Thank you, Lori. I'm the utility engineer for Athens-Clarke County. I have several projects included in the 2020 service delivery plan. In water, we are continuing to upgrade aging water mains. These are some of the lines that Frank spoke about that could be over 100 years old. We're also replacing small diameter pipes. We have some 2-inch water lines in the county that are not large enough to support a fire hydrant, so we are going through and systematically replacing those lines. Recently, the Mayor and Commission approved a project to improve our transmission grid. We have large pipelines to efficiently move large amounts of water throughout the county, and the Mayor and Commission gave us approval to make a connection at the Pound Street facility between Pound Street and the other side of the loop. In wastewater, we've got 2 projects under construction. If you notice, Baxter and Lumpkin is torn up right now. We're replacing the sewer on campus during some time while the students aren't there. We're also working on the upper North Oconee sewer line. Those 2 projects are in the service delivery plan and they're under construction. We've got a couple projects preparing to begin: the Brooklyn Creek sewer, and then the upper North Oconee Phase 2C. Then we have several more that are in design. That's our responsibilities in the utility engineering department for water and sewer in the service delivery.
Thank you, Greg. There's a lot going on there. Next, we have Hollis Terry. He is the environmental engineer for the utility. He covers the plans to maintain and improve our water treatment plant and our water reclamation facilities. Hollis, can you share a little bit more with us?
Yes, I'm Hollis Terry. I'm the environmental engineer. I'm proud to talk about the award-winning plants we have. We have the J.G. Beecham Water Plant, which is 11 years continuous permit compliance, and the 3 water reclamation with 6+ years of compliance and receiving platinum awards for that. My goal is to make sure that within PUD, we provide the resources they need over the next 20 years to continue to maintain that compliance or that permit compliance. First up, we have the phosphorus additions at 3 wastewater plants. Those include filters being added to each of the facilities, which were not included in the upgrade. We have drinking water regulations that are predicted to come within the next year. We have aeration basin improvements, a thermal dryer going at North Oconee, several upgrades to the plants to make sure they continue to comply, but also reduce their operating costs, which we'll talk about later. Also, we have so many projects going on to make sure that from 2015 to 2020, we've accomplished a lot of tests. So that's what I am concerned with right now.
Thank you, Hollis. Definitely, again, a lot going on, always a lot going on with the utility. Finally, we have as our panelist, Marilyn Hall. She is our Senior Resources Planner, and as such, she covers the plans to build our water supply resiliency to meet projected water demands. Marilyn, can you tell us a little more about your section?
Sure. Again, I'm Marilyn Hall. I'm the Water Resources Planner for Athens-Clarke County, and my role in the service delivery plan is long-term planning. In fact, that's my role at the utility also. Ensure that we have enough water 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road to make sure Athens has all the water that it needs to grow and flourish. I also am responsible for special projects. I'm one of the examples that I'm most proud of is the solar array at Cedar Creek that was just completed last year. It added about a 700 kilowatt solar power generating array to the county, and we're real proud of that, as the mayor and commission do have a goal to reduce carbon emissions. And I also am responsible for conservation and long-term conservation and water use.
Thank you, Marilyn. Yes, the solar panel has been placed out at Cedar Creek Water Reclamation Facility. We do offer tours of our facilities. Obviously, during the pandemic, we have had to suspend tours, but I do encourage anybody to pay attention on our website. We offer the quarterly tours and to sign up. And if you hit it just right, a tour at Cedar Creek to see the solar panels, you may show up when we have our special employees, which are a herd of sheep who help to keep the grass maintained underneath the solar panel arrays. Now, the first service delivery plan was developed in 1995, and it is updated every 5 years ever since. In every update, we review our goals and objectives for water and wastewater services. We call it a service delivery plan, but really it's our long-range capital improvements program. It is a merger of a systematic master plan and a prioritized strategic plan, but it's carefully crafted into a sophisticated 20-year financial model. This may bring up a question for one of our participants. You may wonder, if we are updating our plans, then what happens with the earlier versions? You saw these versions from Frank. They don't just get put on a shelf. There is more that happens with them. So Hollis, can you share with us a brief update as to what happens with the past plans when we revise a new one, and why do we move forward with a new one?
The older service delivery plans most of the time have developed within the next one, which is, for instance, 2015 has moved into 2020 based on where they are in the projects. For instance, Cedar Creek Solar Array was in 2015. It is complete, so it will not be in the 2020 process. However, you will have the Middle Oconee and North Oconee filters, or the phosphorus improvements that were in the 2015 project, but now they're in design. And as this is a long range project, we actually are finishing up that filter project and about to bring it before Mayor and Commission. I will note that a lot of these projects, we have to do concept approval and preliminary approval, and thankful for Mayor and Commission that these have happened for like the filter projects and different projects to get us where we are. So I want to acknowledge them in that. We have other projects that were in the 2015 that we're still working on or in design. We have a lot of them on the facilities, but pretty much would have been a long-term plan. We're actually in design for a lot of it. But we have accomplished a lot over the last 5 years.
Well, thank you, Hollis. So it sounds like as we complete our projects, we will add in new ones, and they can switch from concept to actual implementation. So the service delivery plan is a living document that changes, grows, and evolves as needed to reflect completion of projects, growth demands, and changes in technology or whatever else may come about. So that's what you're saying, correct, Hollis?
Yeah, you said it better than I did.
You said it wonderfully. Thank you. We did have a question submitted by a customer asking about fire protection. I believe many are often surprised to learn that fire protection actually falls under the public utilities domain and not necessarily the fire department. We install and maintain fire hydrants. And Greg, can you take a moment to share with us a little further about PUD's role in fire protection for the city?
Sure. And our goals in our department are to maintain water quality and water pressure, improve fire protection, implement redundancy, and replace aging water lines before failure. As part of the improving fire protection, we've worked with the fire department to identify locations around the county that needed fire hydrants closer. So if there's a fire, there's a hydrant within 750 feet. We've continued to work with the fire department to make those hydrants appear. Our last ISO rating, working with the fire department, we were given the highest rating that you can get by the ISO, which turns around to the lowest property owner's insurance that you can get. So by having this improved fire protection, we're actually helping reduce property insurance rates. We've got just under 6,500 fire hydrants in the county. And those are being added to monthly.
That is great news, because that insurance rating helps our customers too with their fire insurance for their home insurance. That's wonderful. Another little bit of trivia about fire hydrants that people may not be aware of is that they can weigh about 500 pounds. They don't look heavy, but they are extremely heavy. And if you haven't been to the downtown area in Athens lately, we do have some painted fire hydrants that you can walk around. We have a H2O water walk that can take you around about 2 miles of fire hydrants that were painted by local artists. I encourage everybody to get out and see those. You can find more information about it on our website. Now, our community depends on water for our personal use as well as to keep the economy flowing. And a good, dependable water supply is imperative for our city to grow and flourish. Marilyn, there are many in the area who voice concern about meeting future water demands. Can you talk to us about how the utility is working today to meet the need for tomorrow?
Sure. In fact, you said today and tomorrow. They've actually been thinking about it for quite a while. In one of the projects in the 2015 plan that's carrying forward to this plan is additional water supplies storage. And the reason for that we need that is because even though it's green outside and it's been raining a lot the last 6 months, last year, we still are subject to droughts periodically. For every 3 years on average, we have a drought that's significant enough that we are dependent on the Bear Creek Reservoir. And as you know, we share that with Oconee County, Barrow County, and Jackson County. And when we're all for using that in a time of drought, the water level can get depleted in that storage reservoir. And looking forward into the future, as demands increase with population and with the projected changes to our hydrology from climate change, you know, the rainstorms are getting worse, or going to get worse, and the droughts are projected to be worse also, and we need to be prepared for that. And one of the things we're doing is water recycling and water supply, additional water storage. And I went on so much, I kind of forgot what the question was.
Could you tell us a little bit more about water recycling? I don't know that many are familiar with that term. Can you share a little bit about what that is?
Sure thing. All over the country, especially out west and in Florida, people have been recycling water for quite a while. And what it does is, it's especially important during times of drought when there's less water for us to pull from in the rivers. There's always water going down the drain in people's homes. People are always creating wastewater, and we can turn it into an actual supply source. And the water recycling projects that we're working on will take reclaimed water from the water reclamation facilities. We're going to treat it to a level that it is usable for our industries and for irrigation and other non-drinking water purposes. And that reduces demands for drinking water. And it also increases supply. It's kind of a win-win on both sides. And we're planning right now to pump that recycled water to the industrial employment areas up like at the Athena Industrial Park, and then also the University of Georgia. And both the industrial customers have expressed interest, as have the University of Georgia. So that's our recycling program in a nutshell.
That's extremely exciting. I like to hear how we're moving forward and looking into new technology that's available. And again, if you're able to attend a tour of a water reclamation facility, you will see at the end of the process how clean the water is that's being returned back to the source. And as Marilyn is suggesting with recycled water, we keep that, instead of returning it back to the river, we keep it here for us to use again, and that would help to reduce demand on our current supply. I think that's fantastic. Thank you, Marilyn. A question we received that often we didn't necessarily get it in response to the service delivery plan, but it's frequently asked, and I think that this is a good opportunity to address this question. Frank, you might be the best for this one. Can you explain why a customer cannot pay online with a credit card? We get that request quite frequently, and it's a valid question. Completely understand the customer's point of view on this. Can you take a moment to expand on this, Frank?
Yes, thank you, Lori. And it does relate to the service delivery plan because, as I mentioned before, all the water and sewer revenues are devoted toward the operation and maintenance of the plants that Hollis is describing, the operation and maintenance and replacement of the pipes, water pipes and sewer lines that Greg was talking about, and having a more modern, diverse array of payment methods is important to a modern utility and to modern folks that are used to remote bill payment. It's in the works. It's coming. Presently, you can pay by credit card remotely, but there's a fee. That fee is going to go away. There's some new software being installed, and we hope to roll it out in coming weeks, not months, but weeks. But in the interim, everyone should be advised that one of the most efficient ways with the lowest overhead, administrative overhead, is actually auto draft from your checking account. ACH is the acronym. That's been available for a long time. But the good news is remote credit card payments are coming your way.
Fantastic. Thank you, Frank. I know that our customers will appreciate that, as will our customer service representatives. That will take a lot of the workload off of them as far as people coming in to use that. A way that you would know about our ability to use credit cards online, a good way to stay abreast of what's happening in the public utility. For those who aren't familiar with our WaterSmart AMI portal, you may want to take a look at this. You can go to accgov.com/watersmart. We recently completed the installation of a new metering system. Now, these meters were the same meters we've always used. However, the way that we read these meters is done wirelessly now, as opposed to requiring a manual read. And the data that we are able to collect from that, we're able to put into this online management tool that we refer to as WaterSmart, and customers are able to register their water for their water account, go on and see their water use. You can see it by the hour, as well as receiving leak notifications. We hear much feedback from our customers expressing their gratitude for this system because they are able to find out that they have a leak within days, as opposed to waiting until they get a bill and they're surprised by the high amount. So if you haven't signed up for WaterSmart, I strongly encourage you to do so. And through there's the link for you to be able to pay your bill, and that would be through your credit card. And we send out notifications through the group messenger if you're enrolled in that, and we can let you know by email that that service is now available. Yes, Frank.
Laurie, I held up my phone a bit ago. I am subscribed to the WaterSmart portal, and I got a notification this morning that my water use yesterday was slightly above the threshold that I had set for notification. And yes, we were watering the garden yesterday, and WaterSmart told me that I had a little bit of unusual usage. So this is a great way to get real-time data on your water usage and manage your water bill.
I like it, Frank. It gives you the power, gives the customers the power of their water bill and to manage it. And feel like it's too high, see where you're using water the most. Thank you, Frank, for real world data here. Now, we did receive a question in our Q&A section over here, and I would like to go ahead and address this. It is regarding the Cedar Creek Emergency Generator project in the service delivery plan. They are wondering if we are aware of here the GEMA Homeland Security Hazard Mitigation Assistant Grant that may provide funding towards this generator. And they have very generously provided the link for us for an application. I'm not sure who would be the best one to answer this, so I will let somebody jump in as they see fit.
I'll jump in since it's facilities. We are aware of that grant. We do have to, however, still plan for putting that generator within our service delivery plan. We always with projects, we look for different funding sources to get the best value for any project, which is why sometimes the project takes longer. We want to make sure we provide the best value to the ratepayers. So we are aware of it. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Hollis. Now, in response to the call for our public feedback on the service delivery plan, we received several questions from customers about the possibility of expanding sewer services into neighborhoods that are currently served by septic systems. In Athens, we have about 25% of our population that does. They are on-site wastewater managers. They have a septic system that they oversee. And Greg, I think this would be a great question for you to respond to regarding the expansion of our sewer lines.
Okay, can you allow me to share a map? Right.
You should be able to share now, Greg.
All right. All right, can you see the map? Can you see it?
Yes, we can see the map.
Okay, thank you. This is a map of the sewer systems. The green one is the Cedar Creek sewer system. The blue is the Middle Oconee, and the pink is the North Oconee. And layered on top of this, we have a density map that shows septic tank areas and the relation of how many times septic tanks have been pumped out. We track that at the treatment plant when haulers bring septic tank waste to the facility, and we've been able to track those manifests and then map them and come up with densities. And this shows us what areas of the county have the highest rate of septic tank pump outs. And using this information, then we have looked for alternatives to sewer to get sewers to these areas if possible. Now, there are, as you can see, there's a lot of areas with a lot of septic tanks. There's about 25% of the population is on septic tanks. We've got a large area that is not sewered in the county. The other thing to realize is that when public utilities expand sewer into an area, we're just talking about the expanding of the trunk lines and the interceptor lines. The neighborhood collection lines and the lines going to the individual houses are still the responsibility of the homeowners, the developers, the house builders. So the sharing of the expense for sewer extension, the ratepayers are not going to cover that cost or supplement that cost. It is going to be on the homeowners. We've got some policies in place, and there is a procedure lined out to show the way that the extensions can be made, where they can be funded over time, and the cost of this is divided between everyone who benefits from that sewer extension. Does that answer the question?
I believe that does. So what I'm hearing is that with sewer expansion, the Public Utilities Department would be able to, we would be responsible for putting in, when you say the trunk line and interceptor lines, those being the pipes underneath the road through the neighborhood, and then it would be the homeowner's responsibility to then install the necessary lines from the home to tie into that sewer line in the street. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then from there, if the neighborhood is wanting to do this, you are saying that there is a procedure that they could take in order to get sewer expansion initiated in their neighborhood.
Yes, it's a petition type effort where the neighbors would get together, sign up a petition, gather the folks in the area that are all interested in this. They would present that petition to the mayor and commission, who would then vote on it and set up a process for the county to expand that sewer and then recoup the cost over time from the homeowners.
Okay, so it's not something that can be put into the service delivery plan as an additional financial investment on the part of the utility.
Not to the extent of going to every home. We do have several projects in the service delivery plan for sewer line extensions into specific areas.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Greg. I think that helps to answer the question for the customers who have this interest and the sewer expansion. As those people are on septic, we do have a website that I know this isn't necessarily what you're hoping for. You're wanting us to expand into the neighborhood, but it's not obviously it's not an easy answer or quick response that we could take with that. We do have a website that offers some care and maintenance advice for septic systems. And with the septic, proper care and maintenance of that, regular pumping and inspecting of the system can extend the life of a septic tank. And in the long run, when it's properly maintained, it is actually less expensive than being on the city sewer system. So there is that benefit too to having a septic system.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and add too, we've had some experience in the last year of taking a sewer extension project to the mayor and commission for Sandy Creek sewer, for the Sandy Creek Basin. And we were instructed to come up with other alternatives to gravity sewer. And the service delivery plan includes a project for designing alternatives to gravity sewer system, and that's one of the projects that's in this plan. And it was in 2015, and we're keeping it in the 2020.
Okay, all right. We do have a question that we have received asking about access to sewer after a number of years of the county unification. Is this something that we can discuss or answer properly, or is this a question that is a little bit longer in detail and something that we can send contact and have conversation with the specific question or the person asking question? Frank?
Thank you, Laurie. It's appropriate to put the question in the context of a very long-range plan. Sewer is a very expensive utility, more so than water. It's deeper, the pipes are larger, there's more structure to a sewer line. And particularly retrofitting an already developed area with sanitary sewer has numerous challenges. And in my 40 years experience, attempting such can have costs easily between $5,000 and $15,000 per lot. And that's if you don't have to build large pump stations. The question regarding the ultimate build out of Athens-Clarke County on sewer is very much commensurate with long-range planning, because even if it's $5,000 per lot to convert from septic tank systems to public sewer, with the number of septic tank systems in the county, you're approaching $60+ million. And it begs the question of where do you go first and who pays? And Greg addressed the question of payment. You have to ask whether or not it's appropriate that the 40,000 water account holders pay for those sewer extensions, or whether or not the 28,000 sewer account holders pay for sewer extensions. Something that many people don't recognize is that the neighborhood infrastructure, when we 100 years ago, utilities used to be in the business of extending water and sewer lines down neighborhood streets. That practice is not continued by most jurisdictions. All that I'm familiar with have a petition policy such that the neighborhood decides by virtue of a majority petition where a sewer extension might go into neighborhood A versus neighborhood B. And what the utility does is fronts the money to make those capital improvements and creating basically a revolving fund such that as assessments are paid, money is available for neighborhood B and neighborhood C to do the same. But it's a very difficult process. And what I'd like to offer is anyone that wants to have perhaps I'm used to having around the kitchen table meetings in people's home with the neighbors in the evening. That may not be appropriate during COVID times, but we would be pleased to have a patio event at anyone's home on their request and walk through how the process might work and try to be as helpful as we can. There is seed money to do this, and Greg in particular, he didn't brag on himself, but is looking at some innovative sewer design that would reduce that cost of converting from septic tank to gravity sewer. One thing I should mention, that large range of cost is very much a function of how far a neighborhood is from existing sewer. Because one of the things I've learned over the years is there's no such thing as an island of sewer service. It ultimately has to be connected to Hollis's water reclamation facilities. So distance from existing sewer is one of the key things that determines what the cost of such would be. But we would love to meet with people individually, time of their convenience, and talk through neighborhood sewer extensions. There's a lot to share, a lot of information to share about that. And we would help you also format a petition such that those who sign the petition have full disclosure of all the parts that might be involved in doing this. We wish that at the onset of early development in Athens over 100 years ago, that trunk sewer lines were built in all the basins. That's rarely the case. Almost all sewer utilities in Georgia, including in some of the large counties, have as many as 50% of their service area served by septic tanks. So Athens is not unique in having, in our case, 10 to 12,000 septic tanks in a community with 40,000 water accounts. I hope that was sufficient answer to your follow-up question, Lori?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Frank. I appreciate you putting a little more explanation into this to address the specific question. It is a very valid and good question. And Frank is serious when he puts out his patio event idea. He is happy to come to your home and talk a little bit further about that. And I encourage you to reach out to him. You can do so, again, by visiting our accgov.com/SDP page. And there are, just submit the form and include contact information, and Frank can return and reach out to you to talk about it further. Since we're talking about septic and wastewater, let's talk about the treatment of that water. As it passes through our collection system, it's done in such a way that allows us to meet permits and protect the environment as we treat this. And this is important because we want to protect not only the environment, but also the community downstream from us. Hollis, can you share with us items in the service delivery plan that, though on the outset may look expensive, will actually allow for savings in the future? Perhaps to tell a little bit about the dryers and such.
Thank you, Lori. I mentioned earlier about the phosphorus polishing. These are new facilities or buildings within the plants, and that's why the cost is a little bit elevated. They're not in place. For instance, your aeration basin improvements at North Oconee, they're within the basin that's already there, inside a facility that's already there, which shows the lower cost. We have the thermal dryer. Thermal dryer mentioned at 12 million. New facility, but it will be offset by operating costs, tipping fees at the landfills being reduced, energy costs being reduced. So that's why the initial capital cost is there. The biggest capital costs, which will be within that 20 years, is biosolids upgrades. Most wastewater plants have what we call primaries and digesters. This reduces both volume and mass of biosolids, and that will be within that 20 years as the plant continues to expand. Next, we have the biggest cost with the J.G. Beecham solids handling. Again, these are new facilities, new equipment, new pumps to get these processes online as the facility grows and needs this treatment process to be done. And again, most of these reduce costs by operating costs. The capital costs put in, but their operating costs should be reduced or offset.
And as we move along with our facilities, we're adding in new components. Are these often made a necessity due to changes in EPD regulations or EPA regulations, or are they just something that we do because something new and shiny comes along, or is this a requirement?
Most of what we do are regulatory, but also we do what we need to make sure we stay within permit. These, as the facilities and population grow, the plant needs to expand, produce more water, treat more wastewater, and these projects help to deliver that to the ratepayers.
Thank you, Hollis. And I'm glad you mentioned the ratepayers, because that moves us into another question that we did receive. Frank, very timely feedback from a customer that I think you could respond to. Specifically, the customer stated a hope that we can do away with the current tier structure and also consider looking at the way that we have averaged or come up with our winter average based on the lowest month for the base of the water bill. And they are wondering about doing it as a 12-month average instead. Can you respond to this?
That's a very prescient question, and like you said, it's timely. Actually, we have some good news to report in that regard. In recent weeks, the Mayor and Commission has revised both rates and water rate structure. And it was also appropriate timing because that's foundational to the upcoming revision to the financial element of the 2020 service delivery plan. So timing is good. The single biggest change is the reduction in what's called the customer service fee. If you're a water customer, every month you see a fixed cost, regardless of your water usage, of $8.81 per month. Most utilities have some sort of base fee or customer service fee. It pays for the fixed cost of billing and meter reading. The customer service fee is going from water $8.81 to $4.40 a month. And for those that are on water and sewer, both of which have a customer service fee, the sewer customer fee is also reducing by half to $4.40 a month. For a water-only customer, that's approximately a $53 per year reduction in their water bill. For water and sewer, it's almost $106 a year. The reason for this, and this is evidence of this long-range planning that the Public Utilities Department in Athens-Clarke County has conducted. Laurie, you earlier mentioned AMI, stands for Automated Meter Infrastructure. It's new technology. A lot of what Hollis is talking about and Greg is talking about and Marilyn is talking about is bringing new and innovative technology to Athens-Clarke County. And AMI, Automated Metering Infrastructure, is one of those. And it was first identified, I believe, in the 2010 Service Delivery Plan. huge efficiency gains. Instead of having 10 meter readers out throughout the county every month at every doorstep reading the meter, all the meter readings are now read remotely here at a centralized location. Those efficiency gains, it was predicted that there would be payback on the AMI investment, and that's been realized. And the dividends, so to speak, brought back to the customers / owner investors in the water and sewer system by a reduced customer service fee. That does result in a reduction in revenue. It's some might argue that's a bit at cross purposes with the service delivery plan, but we are confident that we can do this and still fund the necessary improvements, replacements, and upgrades to the water and sewer system. But there are other changes too, also, some of which the question was nicely anticipated. Another change to that the Mayor and Commission adopted was to widen the tiers for single-family households. Right now, a customer, if you have some unusual usage, like in my case, as mentioned before, irrigate the garden, you might find yourself entering tier 4 with not a lot of extra water usage in a given month. Tier 2 and tier 3 are now 4 times as wide combined as they previously were, which means that a customer with a little bit of unusual or higher usage than normal doesn't enter into the higher price tiers as rapidly. But the tiers were retained, and I refer you to the 2010 Georgia Water Stewardship Act that required everyone to adopt a inclining rate structure, and almost all utilities in North Georgia, since we're in the headwaters, have this inclining rate structure for conservation orientation. The other change that the Mayor and Commission adopted is to base your tier 1 allocation, the range at which you wouldn't enter into a higher price tier, on the annual average, which is exactly what that question was seeking, instead of using the 4-month winter average. Widening the tiers and implementing the annual average is going to take place over coming months. There's one other thing that may be of interest, and it's also contextually appropriate. The 2015 Service Delivery Plan financial element anticipated annual rate increases, as had been the case in the prior 5 years through 2022. Given COVID, there will not be a water and sewer rate increase for fiscal year 2021, which begins July 1 of 2020. Every year we survey other water and sewer utilities, some larger, some smaller, particularly those that are neighboring or comparable. And up until these recent changes, our water and sewer bill for average home usage, which is 3,300 gallons, was higher than average. We are right now exactly in the middle of the dozens of water and sewer utilities that we compare our rates with. So good news, and thank you for the question.
Yes, thank you, Frank, for your response. And yes, great question and great timing from our customer. Now, Marilyn, you have been spearheading these revisions to our service delivery plan, which is quite an undertaking. Thank you very much. We appreciate your hard work on this and the hours you've put into devising the plan. A second part to that customer's question was asking about a water surplus. They understood that the system or the tiered system came in 2008 in response to drought. And they're wondering about, now that we have a water surplus, whether the tier system is needed. Frank touched on that briefly with the mention of the Georgia Water Stewardship Act, but can you just quickly cover the idea of a water surplus?
Sure. Seems like we do have a surplus now, but as Frank pointed out, we are at the headwaters of our water supplies. We're dependent on the North Oconee and Middle Oconee rivers And when it rains a lot, like it has been, they're full, and we do kind of have a surplus, but it all flows downstream and goes away. And like I said earlier, we share with the Bear Creek Reservoir with 3 other counties. And for the 4 counties to be tapping into that one source during a drought is not the best scenario. If there's a prolonged drought, say it goes on for 2 summers, as opposed to just one, we could potentially run into a real water shortage. So like today, we do have a supply, a big supply, but we don't have anywhere to put it. If one of the projects in the service delivery plan, it's one of the larger projects, is additional supply and then a water transmission pipeline from the supply to the drinking water plant. And when that work is completed, Athens will have its own nice storage facility that it doesn't share with other counties, that it can use year round, but then also during drought. And we can use the surplus water like we might have now to fill it and keep it full for when we need it. It's a good question.
Thank you, Marilyn. I do find it to be a relief to know that working with the utility, I am aware of the number of droughts that we do go into. Sometimes they don't seem to be as critical or as painful for a water customer, because our community, had everybody on the back, has really adopted a water efficient lifestyle, and it has placed less demand on our system. So when we do go through a drought, we don't experience the pain that we felt in the 2007 drought period. So that's wonderful, but it doesn't mean that we don't have the constant concern and worry that we may not have enough on a non-rainy day. So it's very reassuring to hear that we are planning for that in the future. Thank you. Now, quick summary. We are running close to the end of our hour for our question and answer session. So to summarize, we have 59 proposed projects that are needed over the next 20 years. They are described and prioritized in the infrastructure and capital improvement elements found in the service delivery plan that will remain online for you to review as a PDF. In the financial element, we take all of this information from the other 2 sections and set an implementation schedule. Every year we revisit this schedule through our annual capital budgeting process. So again, it's a living document. We are always referring back to it and going by this plan. The infrastructure and capital improvements will come up for approval before the mayor and commissioner in July. The financial element will be ready in late fall, with an expectation that we have the service delivery plan complete by the end of the year. If there are any additional questions that arise after today's session, or as you move through, again, the videos and the PDF will be available online at accgov.com/SDP. You can submit additional feedback. You can also contact us directly. We will have a recording of today's session available on the website, same website, at the beginning of next week. We appreciate your time and interest in our waters. As you know, we can't live without it, and we are happy to have a community that we live in that understands the value of water in our everyday lives. So thank you very much for attending.
Thanks, Lori. You're a great host.